Hi there, this is Jane Butel with Chilies and Chilies, showing you how to make mole verde. Mole verde is a very simple dish. It's made with three different kinds of greens: chicken broth, chicken thighs, fresh onion, fresh garlic, and romaine lettuce. Here you see us grinding the slivered almonds. We place it in a Hamilton Beach food processor blender, and the almonds are kind of hard to grind. It's really almost impossible to get them just totally powdered, but this is doing a lovely job, and you just keep pulsing it. Use a higher speed and just keep turning it on and off until you get the kind of the texture you want, which is a fine powder. And in older times, in old Mexico, they used this for thickening. And now we're going to take the ground almonds and place them in sort of a heavy skillet, and over a medium heat we're adding the olive oil, and to the olive oil we're going to be adding the powdered almonds, and we're just going to pour them in here as soon as the oil starts to get warm. And the easiest way to tell when the oil is getting warm is just place your hand down, and if it feels warm, the heat is coming up like there. Now it's hot enough, and you can see I didn't get each single sliver of almond powdered, but I did, I got pretty most of them, the majority, and those little bits of crunch won't be a problem. So we're just going to try to get as much of the powdered almond out of the blender jar as possible, and now we just want to stir it. And this is one of those heat safe rubber scrapers that has a high tolerance for heat, and we just want to make sure that the olive oil gets well incorporated into the ground almonds. Actually, the original recipe had a great deal more olive oil, and to just make it healthier I did cut back on the olive oil. Now we're just going to add the chicken broth. Whenever you're using a blender, always add the most liquid ingredient first, because this creates like a vortex and it'll make a really good sauce. So now we're going to add the more solid items, which are the onion. This is a Spanish onion quartered, and start adding the various greens. That's the romaine lettuce, and romaine is actually a good lettuce to use because romaine is the healthiest of all lettuces. It's second only to spinach in its nutritive values. So here we're just pulsing and continuing to go back and forth to stir it a little bit and add maybe a little more stock. And what we're trying to get here is a mole mixture of all the various ingredients ground together or blended together. And you just have to have a bit of patience with it, and we're placing the lid back and forth onto the blender jar so that it will seal well to get it blended. And here we're adding the fresh chunked jalapeno, and you can vary the amount of jalapeno you use. It should be a pretty spicy dish, but it shouldn't be so over the top spicy for you that it's too hot. Here we're adding the cilantro and the flat leaf parsley, and we're going to also get the fresh garlic in there, and just keep and you can see this has a nice wide jar, this Hamilton Beach food processor blender, so it allows for you can really get your rubber scraper right down in there and get the mixture moving together. This is almost done, and we're just a wee bit more chicken stock or chicken broth. Going to blend it just a little more and make our nice mole verde sauce. So this is a historic mole, and it's actually one of my favorites. I've made it all over the world because almost all these ingredients are pretty easy to obtain in markets. I've done it in France and Africa and various places in Canada and the United States. So it's a go-to dish for me, and I know it's so healthy. Now here you can see that the almond mixture has gotten slightly tan, and this adds sort of a nut-like wonderful flavor to it. So now we're adding the slurry or the mole mixture of all the greens with the chicken broth, and we're just going to be simmering it together. And this delightful mole verde can be the basis for other kinds of other kinds of meats or seafood. I've made it with scallops or a mixture of scallops, shrimp, and firm-fleshed fish such as red snapper or cod or mahi-mahi or any of the sea bass types or halibut. And I'm using thighs today. And when we prepare, and we're just going to steam it a little bit with the lid on, when we prepare the mole mixture, you want it to cook only until the ingredients get well blended and the color is still a nice bright green. You don't want to cook it so long that the ingredients start to turn almost like a yellow or chartreuse. It's not nearly as pretty, and of course it's not as nutritious, because a lot of those vitamins get damaged. They go away with too much heat, too much cooking. So I like to taste it to see if there's any need for salt. I don't like to add salt just automatically to a recipe. I always like to cook it a while and then taste it and see if salt is needed, because I think we Americans oftentimes get way too much salt in our diet, and that's a way to kind of prevent it. I started to tell you, when I create the chicken for this, I do simmer them, or poach them I prefer to say, in that double rich chicken stock, which is really a good way. Whenever I cook fish or seafood, I like to cook it in fish stock, and the same beef stock. If you cook things in their own stock, they really get so much more flavor. Here you can see a simmer starting to develop, and it takes a while, but not a very long while for this to develop. And once it starts to simmer, you've tasted it, the flavor adjustment's just perfect, and you can see here that it has changed texture. The almond mixture has blended with the greens and thickened it, so it now becomes a nice thick sauce, and it's just fabulous served over rice. And the whole secret here is you do not want to overcook it at any step of the way. So these are boneless, skinless thighs. We've deboned them and of course taken the skin off. Sometimes people do leave the skin on, and it can be left on. Ideally though, you do not. So here we're just sort of tucking them down into their little blanket of the mole sauce, and once again we're going to steam it with the lid on, which kind of helps. And see how the color is just getting more beautiful by the moment, and it's a nice sort of a spring-like green. And by the way, this freezes just beautifully. I've frozen this one. A lot of times for at dinner I'm going to be giving you the mole, more of a chocolate mole, and for this recipe, just go to Chilies and Chilies at janebutelcooking.blogspot.com, and I know you're going to just love cooking with